My brother's new wife had no idea I owned the house they lived in. "You're a pathetic 40-year-old leech. Get out," she shouted. I erupted in laughter. "Try to make me." She called the police, but when they examined the property deed, she was forced to leave. My name is Madison Reynolds, and at 33, I've established myself with a thriving career in real estate investment. 3 years ago, my parents tragically passed away in a devastating accident, bequeathing their property to me. When my brother Ryan was at his lowest point after their death, I allowed him to stay in our family home without paying rent. Everything was fine until he married Allison after a rapid romance. She was completely unaware I was the homeowner. "You're a pathetic 40-year-old leech. Get out," she exclaimed furiously one day. I burst out laughing. "Just try. If you're watching this from somewhere entitled Individuals Frustrate You, please like and subscribe to follow the conclusion of this narrative. Growing up, Ryan and I were tight-knit even with our 4-year age gap. As the elder sister, I always felt a strong protective instinct for him, especially after our father's job demanded frequent moves. We relocated between 5 different states during our childhood, making us each other's sole consistent presence. Those early years taught me to be adaptable and self-reliant, traits that would later serve me well in my professional life. While Ryan pursued his passion for graphic design, I discovered my aptitude for property investment during college. I started small by using my scholarship savings to buy a dilapidated apartment, refurbishing it on weekends, and selling it for a small profit. That first success ignited a passion within me. By 25, I had built a significant portfolio of rental assets across the city. Our parents were incredibly proud. Mom, a high school literature teacher, and Dad, an engineer, had always stressed financial autonomy. They were surprised but supportive when I bypassed the conventional career route after college and went straight into real estate investing. Ryan, meanwhile, had built a promising career at a marketing firm where his design talents were acknowledged and compensated. 3 years ago, everything shifted. Our parents were driving home from their anniversary dinner when an impaired driver struck their vehicle head-on. Neither survived the collision. The news completely devastated our lives. As the executor of their estate, I inherited the family home and 2 income properties they had purchased for retirement income. Ryan received their monetary holdings and investment portfolios. The division was logical. I had the experience to manage the properties, and Ryan had no desire to be a property manager. What none of us anticipated was the profound extent of Ryan's depression after their death. Within 6 months, his professional output drastically declined. He failed to meet deadlines, avoided meetings, and ultimately lost his employment. His girlfriend of 3 years departed soon after, unable to manage his grief and increasingly erratic conduct. Watching my brother's descent was agonizing. When he mentioned he could no longer maintain his apartment, the answer was clear. The childhood home sat vacant as I had my own place closer to downtown, where most of my professional activities were located. "Move into the house," I told him over coffee one rainy afternoon. "Take all the time you need to recover. Rent, no timeline." His eyes, which had been consistently downcast for months, met mine with a spark of hope. "You sure?" "Absolutely," I assured him. "Our parents would have approved." My own apartment was a contemporary loft within a renovated factory. All visible brickwork and large industrial windows. It was perfect for my lifestyle, close to my office, easy to maintain, and ideal for infrequent business discussions. The family home was in a tranquil suburban area about 30 minutes away. A quaint colonial-style house with 4 bedrooms and an expansive yard where we had spent countless summers. For about a year and a half, the setup functioned flawlessly. Ryan began a gradual recovery. He started freelancing again, took up running, and occasionally joined me for our customary Sunday dinners. A tradition we kept alive to honor our folks. Then Allison appeared on the scene. They met at a bereavement support group, his therapist suggested. Allison had reportedly lost her husband 2 years prior in a workplace accident. Or so she claimed. Ryan was instantly smitten. Looking back, I should have noticed the warning signs when she swiftly dominated his time. But I was just happy to see my brother smiling again. Their relationship advanced with astonishing speed. Within 3 months of dating, Ryan called me with news that rendered me momentarily speechless. "We're getting married," he announced, his voice light with an excitement I hadn't heard in years. "Wow, Ryan, that's incredibly quick," I managed to say. "When you know, he replied with the conviction of someone newly smitten. The wedding was a modest ceremony at the local courthouse with just a handful of guests. I tried, To be supportive despite my doubts about the accelerated timeline, Allison was blonde, petite, and consistently, impeccably dressed in a manner that felt deliberate rather than natural. During the modest reception at a nearby restaurant, I noticed how she continually directed Ryan away whenever I tried to approach him. "She's just nervous about making a good impression," Ryan explained when I mentioned it later. But there were other things that night that raised my concerns. The way she reprimanded Ryan's dining etiquette publicly, how she dismissed his suggestion about their honeymoon destination with a sharp comment that caused him to blush with shame. The chilly appraisal in her gaze when she looked at my unassuming yet sophisticated pantsuit and asked if I ever dressed like a woman. Still, I held my peace. Ryan had endured immense hardship, and if Allison made him happy, I would make an effort for his sake. I even gave them a sizable check as a wedding present, which Allison immediately took control of, tucking it into her handbag before Ryan had a chance to express gratitude. "We should have her over for dinner soon," Ryan said as we hugged goodbye that night at the house. It was only later that I realized he had said the house, not your house. A slight alteration that would become highly meaningful in the months to come. 2 weeks after the wedding, I drove to the family home for our customary Sunday meal. Ryan had texted that morning to say Allison was eager to entertain me. I brought a bottle of wine and a potted orchid as a gesture of goodwill. The moment I walked through the front door, I felt a sense of unease. The entryway, which had always featured our mother's antique console table and mirror, now displayed an unfamiliar glossy white table. The inviting beige walls were now painted sterile white, and all the family photos were gone. "We've been redecorating," Ryan explained when he saw my expression. "Allison possesses an exceptional design sensibility." Allison emerged from the kitchen wearing an apron that appeared more ornamental than practical. "Madison, right on time." Her smile failed to extend to her eyes. "Ryan, take her coat, honey." As Ryan hung up my jacket, I noticed more changes throughout the living room. The cozy sectional where our family enjoyed movie nights was supplanted by a rigid leather sofa that looked expensive but uninviting. My mother's beloved art book collection was conspicuously absent. "The place looks different," I said carefully. "It was incredibly antiquated," Allison replied. "All those heavy antiques and dark colors. We've been modernizing it." I restrained myself from pointing out how many of those outdated items were cherished family heirlooms. Instead, I asked, "Did you store Mom's console table?" "It was a family piece." Ryan and Allison exchanged a quick glance. "We contributed certain items to create space for our shared future," Allison said breezily. "One can't forge a future while clinging to the past, can they?" Throughout dinner, I noticed subtle changes in Ryan. He appeared uneasy, deferring to Allison's expression before speaking. When I mentioned a family anecdote from our childhood, he swiftly diverted the conversation when Allison's smile grew rigid. "So, Madison," Allison said as she served a dessert, "aren't you solitary living alone in that apartment?" "No husband, no kids. I'm perfectly content with my life," I replied evenly. "My business keeps me busy and I have great friends." "But you're what, 33 now? Your biological clock must be quite audible." She chortled as if she'd uttered a playful jest. Ryan looked uncomfortable, but said nothing. "I've never equated my success with marriage or progeny," I said. "But I appreciate your concern." Later, as we finished clearing the dinnerware, Allison mentioned their plans to overhaul the kitchen. "We're considering granite countertops and modern appliances," she explained. "The home loan is settled, so we can afford property enhancements." I almost dropped the dish in my hand. "Mortgage." Ryan had informed me his parents bequeathed him the house Allison continued, not perceiving my bewilderment. "What a blessing to begin our union free of housing expenses." I glanced at Ryan, who had suddenly become engrossed in loading the dishwasher. He hadn't rectified her misconception about the property's ownership. After Allison departed to prepare coffee, I pulled Ryan aside. "She thinks you own the house," I whispered. Ryan appeared distressed. "Please don't say anything, Maddie. When we first met, she assumed I owned the place, and I didn't." "Correct her. Why would you lie about that?" He combed a hand through his hair, a childhood nervous tic. "You don't understand. Allison prioritizes security and achievement. When we met, I was just recovering my footing. If she knew I was living in my sister's house rent-free, Ryan, relationships require a foundation of truth. I'll tell her eventually," he promised. "Just not now, we're still getting established. Please Maddie, do this for me." Against my instincts, I consented to temporarily uphold the pretense. After all, I reasoned, it was still a family house. The exact ownership was inconsequential as long as Ryan was recovering his stability. Over the next few weeks, my visits grew progressively awkward. Allison made comments about my showing up unannounced, even when I texted ahead. She challenged my continued possession of a key to their house, implying it was an invasion. Each time, Ryan would cast apologetic looks my way, but stayed mute. I started noticing more family items disappearing with each visit. The grandfather clock from the hallway, Dad's collection of rare mystery novels, Mom's hand-decorated servingware. When I asked about them, Allison would offer indefinite replies about tidying or making room. The friction between us became tangible. Ryan began fabricating reasons why Sunday dinners had to be deferred or changed. Twice I showed up at the arranged time, only to discover they'd forgotten and planned other activities. It stung more than I cared to acknowledge. Not just the disregard for family customs, but watching my brother morph into a stranger, someone who seemed hesitant to contradict his new spouse. Someone who looked away when our shared past was referenced. I was losing him, and I felt powerless to intervene. 3 months into Ryan and Allison's marriage, the circumstances rapidly worsened. My weekly visits had diminished to sporadic, strained meetings where I felt more like an uninvited trespasser rather than a family member. One Tuesday afternoon, I dropped in unexpectedly, something I'd never done before because I needed to collect some tax papers I'd stored in the home office. I'd texted Ryan earlier, but he hadn't responded. Using my key, I admitted myself, announcing my presence. "Hello, Ryan." "Allison, it's Madison." The house was silent. I made my way to the office, noticing more changes along the way. The hallway, once adorned with a chronological display of family photos, now featured bland artwork reminiscent of a corporate hotel. The door to my parents' bedroom, which I had always assumed Ryan was using, was closed with a small decorative sign hanging on it. Primary suite, private. In the office, I went straight to the filing cabinet containing crucial documents. As I searched for my tax papers, I noticed numerous files absent, notably the folder holding the house deed and ownership documents. Frowning, I expanded my search. The cabinet had been reordered, with many family files entirely removed. Just as I was about to give up, I spotted my father's antique roll-top desk in the corner. A cherished heirloom he'd inherited from his own father. The rich cherrywood surface was draped with a cloth, serving as a stand for a large television. My heart plummeted at the disregard for this family heirloom. On impulse, I rolled up the top to check the small, concealed compartment where Dad always kept significant items. It was empty. As I turned to leave, something caught my attention on Allison's laptop display, which she'd left open on the desk. It was an e-commerce listing for my mother's vintage Tiffany lamp. A bridal gift from my grandmother, with the caption, "Authentic Tiffany-style lamp. Perfect condition. $800. I felt a wave of nausea. They were liquidating family legacies. I took a photo of the display, then quickly scrolled through additional listings under the identical account. There were dozens of items I recognized. The absent first edition books, Mom's sterling silver collection, even the small oil paintings that had hung in the dining room for decades. Just then, I heard the front door open and heard Allison's voice calling for Ryan. I quickly closed the laptop and headed downstairs, my thoughts scrambling for words. Allison's smile solidified upon seeing me. "Madison, what a surprise." I texted Ryan about some tax documents, I explained, displaying the folder I had managed to locate. "Really? He didn't mention it." Her tone implied disbelief. "How did you get in?" "I utilized my key," I said, noticing Ryan's unease standing behind his spouse. "Your key?" she echoed blandly. "Ryan, I thought we discussed this." Ryan shifted his weight. "I meant to talk to you about that, Maddie. We value our privacy as a married couple." Allison cut in. "It's unsuitable for you to have unimpeded access to our home." I grasped the concept of privacy, I said carefully. "But this has been our family home for 15 years. I've always had a key." "Things change when people get married," Allison said with a strained smile. "I'm sure you understand, or would if you ever settled down." I disregarded the barb and turned to Ryan. "Can we talk privately for a minute about the family possessions that appear to be vanishing?" Ryan's expression was panicked. "What items?" "The Tiffany lamp, Dad's books, Mom's silver," I listed, observing his expression drop. "I saw the internet listings, Ryan. Allison stepped between us. Those articles were merely collecting dust. We're creating our own home now. Those things, I said, striving to keep my voice steady, are family heirlooms with both financial and emotional worth. Ryan inherited the house's contents, Allison declared, resolutely. He has full discretion over them. I stared at my brother. Is that what you told her? That you inherited everything? Ryan avoided my gaze. Allison, maybe we should discuss this later. There's nothing to talk about, she retorted. Your sister needs to respect our limits and our belongings. The paradox of her asserting ownership of my legally owned house was nearly insufferable, but the pain in Ryan's gaze prevented me from disclosing the truth. Ryan, I said quietly, some of those items hold great significance for me. They represent fragments of our parents, our shared past. For a moment, I thought I saw a glimmer of my familiar brother. Then Allison placed a hand on his arm and his expression faltered. We need to make our own history now. Maddie, he mumbled feebly. Maybe you could just take what's important to you. That would be helpful, I agreed, eased by this minor compromise. There's not much, just Mom's jewelry chest, the family photo albums, and maybe a few of the books. Absolutely not, Allison interrupted. We've already pledged the books to a collector, and the jewelry is included in Ryan's inheritance. I felt an internal breaking point. Ryan, is this really what you want to obliterate every vestige of our family? Don't influence him, Allison snarled. Just because your life is void doesn't grant you perpetual attachment to your brother. Ryan finally spoke up, but not as I hoped. Maybe it's best if you go now, Maddie. We can talk about this another time. I left with only my tax documents, feeling empty inside. 2 days later, when I tried to visit again, my key no longer functioned in the lock. Ryan texted an apology saying, Allison deemed it best to alter the locks for safety. He vowed to put aside the items I'd requested. But when I arrived at our arranged meeting time that weekend, no one responded, at the door, or to my calls. This sequence recurred repeatedly over the next few weeks. Ryan would arrange to meet me, then cancel at the 11th hour with indistinct pretexts. Finally, a month later, I received a text from an unidentified number containing images of a storage locker holding a few family items. Not the ones I'd specifically requested, but arbitrary boxes of lesser worth. The message read, Ryan asked me to let you know you can pick these up. Unit 35B at Secure Store on Maple Street. Code is 5528. No jewelry chest, no photo albums, no books, just boxes of old clothes and kitchen items our mother had stored in the attic. When I called Ryan to ask what was happening, Allison answered his phone. Ryan is occupied, she stated brusquely. We've been exceedingly generous with what we've provided you. It's time you ceased badgering us. Harassing, I repeated, incredulous. I'm trying to safeguard family mementos. Family memories. She scoffed. You mean your parents' old clutter? Ryan is progressing with his life. You ought to try it yourself sometime. Before I could respond, she hung up. My consecutive calls were directed to voicemail. Ryan eventually texted that he was taking a pause from the turmoil and would contact me once things settled. I felt like I was losing not only the tangible links to my parents but also my brother. For weeks, I considered my options. Should I enforce my legal ownership of the house and jeopardize my relationship with Ryan entirely? Or continue to watch as Allison methodically eliminated our family history and estranged my brother? The choice was made for me when I learned, via social media, that they were hosting a housewarming gathering at my property and hadn't bothered to invite me. I debated whether to arrive unannounced at the party but ultimately decided against it. Causing a spectacle before their friends would not resolve the issue. Instead, I waited until the following Sunday, our customary family dinner day, and drove to the house with a small offering, a homemade apple pie using our mother's recipe. When I rang the doorbell, I could hear music playing inside. After a lengthy pause, the door cracked open just enough for Allison to peek out. Her expression tightened upon seeing me. Madison, this isn't a good time. I managed a strained smile. I won't stay long. I just brought pie for Sunday dinner. Is Ryan home? She didn't open the door wider. We have other engagements. Please, Allison. Just 5 minutes with my brother. She let out a theatrical sigh. Wait here. The door shut in my face. Several minutes passed before the door opened again. This time, Ryan stood there appearing uneasy. Hey, Maddie, he said, avoiding my gaze. This really isn't a good day. It's Sunday, I said simply. Family dinner. Mom's apple pie. I presented the dessert. Ryan glanced over his shoulder before partially shutting the door behind him. Look, Allison and I have some friends arriving shortly. Can we do this another time? When Ryan, you've canceled or overlooked the last 6 attempts I've tried to see you. He combed a hand through his hair. Things have been busy with the home renovations, so I've been informed. The housewarming appeared pleasant in the pictures. His face flushed. Maddie, the door suddenly pulled open behind him. Allison stood there, arms folded. This is exactly the type of interference I'm referring to. Ryan, she said sharply. Unannounced visits, guilt-inducing comments about family customs. I texted yesterday, I noted calmly. And Ryan told you we were busy, she retorted. Yet here you are anyway, insisting on intruding into our lives. I'm not forcing anything. I'm trying to preserve a connection with my soul. Brother Allison sighed impatiently. Forever, the aggrieved party. Ryan has a new family now, me. He doesn't need you loitering like some mournful, solitary spinster. Ryan flinched. Allison, please. No, Ryan. It's time someone said it. She turned back to me, her voice elevating. You're a pathetic 40-year-old leech. Get out and stay out of our house. Something within me gave way. After months of watching her dismantle my family's legacy, isolate my brother, and now, stand at the threshold of my own home, ordering me out, I erupted in laughter. The sound visibly astonished them both. Allison's face contorted with fury. You think this is funny? I'll call the police. Have you removed for illegal entry? I dabbed tears of amusement from my eyes. Oh, please do. Attempt to remove me. Call the police. I'd relish seeing their expressions. Ryan appeared alarmed. Madison, please, let's not intensify this. No, Ryan, I said, abruptly composed. I've honored your desires for months. I've watched as family heirlooms disappeared. I've endured being locked out of my own property, but I'm finished. Allison's gaze sharpened. Your property. This is our house. Ryan inherited it from your parents. I reached into my purse and pulled out a folder. Actually, no. Ryan inherited their monetary assets. I received the house and possessed the deed as proof. The color vanished from Allison's face. You're lying. The deed is registered in my name. I continued, unfolding the document to reveal to them. I've been allowing Ryan to reside here, rent-free to aid his recovery after our parents died. Ryan looked like he might be sick. Maddie, I can explain. Allison seized the papers from my grasp and scrutinized them, her expression transitioning from disbelief to rage. She turned sharply on Ryan. You lied to me. You said you owned this house. Ryan faltered. I was going to tell you, but all this time we've been living in her house. Allison's voice escalated to a shriek, making upgrades to her property while she had a key and could walk in any time. She rushed back inside, grabbing her phone. I'm calling the police. This must be fraud or some deception. Go ahead, I said calmly, following her inside. Call them. I have all the documentation right here. Ryan remained motionless between us as Allison desperately dialed 911, her hands trembling with fury. I need to report a fraud, she told the dispatcher. My husband's sister is attempting to assert ownership of our house. She's menacing us and declining to vacate our premises. I waited patiently, placing my document folder on the coffee table, a new glass item utterly unlike our parents' taste. 20 minutes later, 2 police officers arrived. Officer Jenkins was a middle-aged man with a composed bearing, while Officer Ramirez was younger and appeared cautious of the palpable tension in the room. So, what seems to be the problem here? Officer Jenkins inquired after introductions. Allison interjected instantly. This woman is badgering us and making spurious claims about our home. She must be escorted out and instructed not to return. The house belongs to me, I clarified calmly. I bequeathed it from our parents 3 years ago. My brother has been residing here, rent-free with my consent. I have all the documentation. I presented the deed, property tax statements, in my name, and the pertinent sections of our parents' will. Officer Ramirez reviewed them meticulously while Officer Jenkins scribbled notes. These seem to be in order. Officer Ramirez finally stated. The property is officially registered to Madison Reynolds. Allison's face twisted in disbelief. That's impossible. Ryan told me he owned this house. All eyes turned to my brother, who appeared to shrivel under their collective scrutiny. Ryan, Officer Jenkins prompted. Did you falsely represent ownership of this property to your wife? Ryan's voice was almost inaudible. I didn't correct her assumption. So, you've been living here with your sisters. Permission, Officer Jenkins clarified. Ryan assented dejectedly. Allison erupted. You miserable failure. You led me to believe we had financial security. I've been planning remodels, broadcasting to everyone that this was our family residence. Ma'am, please reduce your volume, Officer Ramirez said firmly. I will not reduce my volume. I've been lied to, deceived. Allison grabbed a decorative vase from the side table and flung it against the wall, where it fragmented. Ma'am, Officer Jenkins stepped forward. Compose yourself or will be compelled to act. Take action against me. I'm the victim here. She turned to Ryan, poking a finger into his chest. You cowardly parasite, subsisting on your sister's benevolence, while feigning the role of a successful property owner. Ryan backed away, appearing shattered. Allison, please, I can explain everything. Explain. Explain. She snatched another object, a framed wedding photo, and hurled it to the floor, glass splintering across the hardwood. Enough, Officer Jenkins said firmly. Ma'am, you need to calm down or you'll be leaving in our car. Leaving? This is my home. Allison screamed, reaching for another breakable object. Officer Ramirez restrained her wrist before she could throw it. Ma'am, legally, this is not your residence, and you're damaging property not belonging to you. Actually, I interjected, the decorative items belong to them. I'm merely asserting ownership of the house itself and particular family heirlooms. Officer Jenkins nodded. Nevertheless, Miss Reynolds is within her rights to request anyone vacate her property, and given the current situation, I highly recommend you take a moment to de-escalate, ma'am. Allison pulled her arm free from Officer Ramirez's hold. This is preposterous. You can't make me leave my own house. Indeed, we can, Officer Jenkins stated resolutely. You have two options right now. You may depart voluntarily to calm down, or, should you persist in this conduct, we can apprehend you for property destruction and public disturbance. The gravity of the situation finally appeared to pierce Allison's fury. She looked at Ryan, who stood powerless by the staircase, then at me, and finally at the officers. Fine, she snarled. I'll go, but this is not finished. She snatched her handbag from the counter. Ryan, are you coming or staying with your cherished sister? Ryan appeared conflicted, his gaze flitting between us. I should accompany you. We need to converse. Allison marched toward the door, then pivoted for one last taunt. Revel in your vacant house and your hollow life, Madison. At least Ryan had the fortitude to pursue something genuine, even if it meant fabricating everything to attain it. The door crashed shut behind them with such intensity that a nearby picture tumbled from the wall. Officer Jenkins turned to me with a compassionate look. Would you like to lodge a report concerning the damaged articles? Ma'am. I shook my head, suddenly depleted. No, they're merely possessions. For what it's worth, Officer Ramirez added, you managed that with remarkable composure. After the officers left, I stood alone in the silent house, surrounded by the manifestations of Allison's fury and the vestiges of what was once a cherished family abode. I sat on the unfamiliar leather sofa and finally allowed myself to cry. After the police left, I spent hours sitting in the empty house, oscillating between tears and periods of stunned disbelief. How had we arrived at this juncture? The residence that once symbolized warmth and familial bonds now felt like a war zone. I walked through each room, documenting alterations and voids. The kitchen, where Mom had taught us both to bake, was now austere and uninviting with its polished new appliances. Dad's study, once filled with books and the faint aroma of his pipe tobacco, a habit he'd abandoned years before his passing, yet somehow persisted, was now a standard home office. It was as if Allison had been methodically obliterating all trace of the Reynolds family's existence. Around midnight, my phone vibrated with a message from Ryan. Staying at a hotel tonight, need time to process. I apologize for not replying. What was there to say? Sorry, you deceived your wife and she discovered it. Apologies that you permitted family heirlooms to be sold. The pain was too profound for text-based communication. Instead, I went upstairs to my old bedroom. Allison had transformed it into a home fitness area with a treadmill where my bed used to be. The light blue walls I'd selected as a teenager were now painted stark white. I unrolled a yoga mat from the corner and lay down, too emotionally depleted to return to my apartment. Morning brought the sound of a key in the lock. I tensed, wondering if Allison had returned for round 2, but it was Ryan who appeared in the doorway of the gym looking worn. "You slept here?" he asked, noticing my temporary sleeping arrangement. "Seemed easier than driving home," I replied, sitting up. "Where's Allison?" "Still at the hotel." He leaned against the doorframe, not quite entering the room. "She refused to let me sleep in the bed, claiming I had betrayed her. I didn't offer compassion." "Did you?" Ryan flinched. "Yes, no, I don't know." He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. "I never meant for any of this to happen. Maddie, what did you think would happen? That I'd never mention owning the house. That she'd never find out, I thought." He trailed off, then tried again. "When I met Allison, I was at rock bottom. No job, no girlfriend, living off my sister's benevolence. She seemed so strong, so put together. When she assumed I owned the house, it felt good to be seen as successful for once." "So, you lied to impress her?" "I merely didn't correct her assumption," he corrected weakly, and then it escalated. One minor oversight developed into this entirely deceptive existence. I stood up, needing to move. "And what about the family heirlooms? Was selling those part of maintaining your successful image?" His face flushed with shame. "That was Allison's idea? She said we needed to make the house ours by purging the stagnant energy. I tried to save some things, hide them in the attic, but she's very persistent." "Persistent," I repeated. "Is that what we're calling it?" "She isn't always like what you witnessed yesterday," Ryan said defensively. "She can be affectionate, supportive. She assisted me when I couldn't even rise from bed after Mom and Dad died." I paused by the window, looking out at the maple tree Dad had planted when we first moved in. Did she find someone vulnerable and isolated him from his emotional network? Ryan was silent for a long moment. "What are you implying?" "I'm saying that in the 6 months you've been married, you've stopped seeing friends, missed the commemorative gathering for Mom and Dad's anniversary, altered the locks on family members, and permitted irreplaceable family valuables to be sold off. Does that sound healthy to you?" "It's not that simple," he protested. "Allison has past trust issues from her past. Her former husband, the one who reportedly died in a workplace accident." I interrupted. Ryan frowned. "Yes, why? Have you ever corroborated her accounts? Met anyone from her history?" His expression told me he hadn't. "Ryan," I said gently, sitting beside him, "when was the last time you felt genuinely happy and at peace with Allison? Not apprehensive about misspeaking or treading carefully." He stared at his hands. "I don't know." We sat in silence as morning light filled the room. Finally, Ryan spoke again, his voice barely audible. "I miss them terribly, Maddie. Mom and Dad. Sometimes it strikes me anew that they're truly gone." "I know," I whispered, feeling my own grief rise freshly to the surface. "Me, too. After they died, it felt like everything good in my life collapsed. My job, Stephanie's departure, then my apartment. And you are so resilient through it all, never breaking down, managing the estate, your business." I felt like such a failure in comparison. "I wasn't as strong as you think," I admitted. "I simply coped differently. I cried in the shower every morning for months, immersed myself in work to evade the void." Ryan appeared surprised. "You never revealed it." I reached for his hand. "That's how family operates. And I compensated you by deceiving and permitting Allison to liquidate family valuables." His voice cracked. "God, I'm so sorry, Maddie." As we sat together on the floor of what used to be my bedroom, Ryan's phone vibrated continuously with texts from Allison, with progressively insistent messages asking where he was and why he wasn't answering her calls. "She's always checking up on me," he said, muting the device. "At first, I thought it was sweet that she cared so much. Now it feels manipulative," I suggested. He nodded slowly. "Last month, I met an old colleague for lunch. She tracked my phone's location, appeared at the restaurant, and created a spectacle about me having a secret date. Even though Jake and I were just debating a prospective freelance assignment." "Did you get the project?" "No. After Allison's scene, Jake said it wasn't suitable after all." Ryan's shoulders drooped. "I haven't had a freelance job in 2 months now." This disclosure troubled me profoundly. Ryan had been an acclaimed graphic designer before our parents' death. His talent hadn't vanished, merely his self-assurance and network. "What happened to all your design friends? Matt, Eliza, the entire studio team?" Allison said they were a detrimental influence, that they reminded me of my failure after losing my job. He looked up suddenly. She deleted their contacts from my phone during my sleep. The more Ryan shared, the pattern became more evident. I'd seen enough friends in unhealthy relationships to identify the indicators: estrangement from friends and family, financial manipulation, degradation of self-worth, ceaseless surveillance. Ryan, I said carefully, I think you might be in an emotionally manipulative relationship. He began to protest, then checked himself. I've had the same thought, he admitted, but then she'd do something thoughtful or appear so vulnerable about her own past trauma, and I persuade myself I'm overreacting. That's part of the cycle, I explained. Tension, outburst, reconciliation, calm, then the cycle repeats. We spent the next few hours talking more openly than we had in years. Ryan disclosed additional disturbing behaviors. How Allison controlled his spending, critiqued his appearance, disparaged his career, and re-narrated their relationship history to portray herself as his rescuer. As the day progressed, Allison's texts grew progressively frantic, vacillating between fury, "Answer me right now," or "I'm calling the police again," and fervent, "Please baby, please. I'm so worried about you. I need you. I can't live without you. I require some personal space to reflect." Ryan finally texted her. Her response was immediate. "It's your sister, isn't it? She's alienating you from me. After everything I've done for you." Ryan turned off his phone. That evening, I ordered pizza and we ate it on the back porch, recalling family dinners and summer cookouts. For the first time in months, I saw glimpses of my real brother returning. His dry humor, his thoughtfulness, his enthusiasm for design, as he showed me clandestine sketches he'd been developing. "Allison dislikes me spending time drawing," he explained when I asked why he was hiding his work. "I slept in the guest room that night, and Ryan took the couch. Neither of us wished to use the primary bedroom Allison had appropriated. Before turning in, I gave him some resources on emotional manipulation and codependent dynamics I'd located online. You don't have to decide anything tonight, I told him. Simply become educated. Identify the patterns. The next morning, I woke to find Ryan already up, sitting at the kitchen table with a notepad covered with notes. I compiled a list, he stated without preamble, of behaviors that frightened or wounded me, things I'd sacrificed since meeting Allison, and fabrications I'd uttered to maintain harmony. He pushed the pages toward me. "It's 7 full pages, Maddie." I didn't need to read it. The fact that he'd filled 7 pages overnight said everything. "What do you want to do?" I asked. "I need distance from her to gain clarity," he said. "Every time I try to establish boundaries, she cries or rages, and I end up apologizing for upsetting her." "You can stay here as long as you need," I assured him. "It's your home too." Ryan looked around the kitchen at the alien decor Allison had selected. The lack of family photographs, the sterile precision that obliterated our past. "No," he said quietly. "This isn't home anymore. She's expunged everything that made it unique." The melancholy in his voice pained me, but his realization offered hope. My brother was finally seeing the truth. The confrontation we'd been dreading arrived the next afternoon in the form of a pounding on the front door, so powerful it shook the hinges. "Ryan, I know you're in there with her. Open this door right now." Ryan and I exchanged looks from where we were sifting through a box of family photos we'd discovered hidden in the attic. "I should speak with her," he said, though his face had gone pale. "We'll both speak with her," I affirmed resolutely. Allison's expression rapidly shifted from fury to feigned sweetness when Ryan opened the door with me standing beside him. "Darling," she purred, entirely disregarding me. "I've been so worried. Why haven't you answered my calls?" She reached for him, but he stepped back. "I needed space to think, Allison," he said, his voice steadier than I expected. She shot me a poisonous glare. "I bet your sister has been filling your mind with falsehoods about me." "Actually," Ryan countered, "Madison has hardly voiced her views. I've been formulating my own thoughts." Allison tried to force her way past him into the house. "Well, you can think at home. Let's go." Ryan didn't move. "I'm staying here for now." Her saccharine pretense fractured. "In your sister's house, like a child, running home to mommy. How pathetic." "It's not pitiful to require family support," he replied. "Family support?" She scoffed. "More like family dominance. She's always been jealous of our relationship, attempting to keep you reliant on her." I remained silent, recognizing this as a pivotal moment for Ryan to assert his own boundaries. "That's not true," Ryan said. "Madison has been nothing but encouraging. She allowed me to live here rent-free, never pressured me about employment, and remained silent when I fabricated ownership of the house. Because she desires to control you," Allison asserted. "If you were self-sufficient, she'd have no one to condescend to." Ryan shook his head. "You know what's interesting? Before I met you, I was beginning to recover, freelancing, once more, rebuilding connections with friends. It's only since we got together that I've become estranged and reliant." Allison's strategy shifted instantly. Her eyes brimmed with tears, and her voice grew fragile. "How can you say that? After everything I've done for you. I rescued you when you were at your nadir. No one else desired you then." I bit my tongue, suppressing the impulse to refute her manipulation. "That's not true either," Ryan said gently. "I had friends and family who cared. You just persuaded me otherwise." Allison's tears disappeared as swiftly as they materialized. She pulled a folder from her large purse. "Fine, if that's how you want to play this. I've conferred with an attorney. As your spouse, I have entitlements to this property irrespective of the deed's listed owner." She shoved a document toward us. "This is a formal declaration of marital property rights. Since we've resided here and made enhancements as a married pair, I'm due at least half ownership." I took the paper, quickly reviewing it. "This isn't a legal document, Allison. It's merely something you drafted, as my lawyer noted." "You haven't consulted a lawyer," I interrupted calmly. "No real attorney would prepare this. It's riddled with misapplied legal terminology and lacking proper formatting or case references." Her face flushed. "You don't know everything, Madison, just because you consider yourself so clever with your property business." "Actually," I cut in, "I am knowledgeable about property law. It's fundamental to my profession, and I've already conferred with my attorney regarding this matter." This wasn't completely accurate. I'd scheduled an appointment, but hadn't met Catherine yet. Nevertheless, the bluff succeeded. Allison hesitated briefly. "Ryan," she tried again, her voice growing tender. "Please, darling, return home. We can resolve this. I love you." Ryan appeared conflicted, and for a moment, I worried he might yield. Then he squared his shoulders. "I require time, Allison. I'm not declaring our marriage over, but I need mental clarity, and I need you to honor that. Respect," she hissed. "Like you respected me by fabricating ownership of this house, making me appear foolish." "You're correct," Ryan conceded. "My lie was wrong. That responsibility rests with me. But your reaction, throwing objects, screaming at me before the police, that's unhealthy too." "No one is asserting that," I interjected. "But right now, you both need space to de-escalate and reflect." Allison pivoted to face me. "Stay out of this. This concerns only me and my husband. Madison remains," Ryan stated with resolve. "This is her property, and she's my sister." Something in his tone must have finally registered. Allison stepped back, reevaluating the scenario. Her eyes became shrewd. "Very well, take your time, but recall, I've also made sacrifices for you, Ryan. I've paused my entire life for our relationship." She turned toward her car, then pivoted for one last taunt. "By the way, I invited my parents to stay with us next month. They've already bought non-reimbursable tickets." After she drove away, Ryan exhaled deeply. "Her parents aren't coming. She doesn't even communicate with them. She's provided me 3 conflicting narratives about their estrangement." "The deceit never ceases, does it?" I observed. "No," Ryan said sadly, "it doesn't." The next day, I met with my attorney, Catherine Mendez, an astute attorney who had managed my property contracts for years. After explaining the predicament, she delineated our alternatives. "Since you're the legal owner, you have every right to decide who resides in the property," she explained. "The fact that you allowed your brother to stay there rent-free does not grant his wife any claim to ownership, particularly in such a brief marriage." "What about the improvements they've made?" I asked. "Unless they can prove substantial, permanent enhancements that significantly augment the property's value, it's irrelevant. Painting walls and buying furniture does not establish a legal claim." She drafted a formal letter clarifying the ownership status and politely yet firmly demanded Allison retrieve her personal belongings from the property within 2 weeks. "I'll also prepare a formal notice of eviction as a contingency," Catherine advised. "Hopefully it won't be necessary, but it's good to have it ready." Meanwhile, Ryan had been doing his own research. He tentatively contacted 3 old friends from his design agency days, reaching out after months of silence. Their replies were instant and encouraging, validating my earlier statements. His support system had never forsaken him. Matt invited me to lunch tomorrow, he told me, sounding both apprehensive and eager. Said their firm is inundated with projects and could use independent assistance. That's great, Ryan, I said sincerely. You're exceptionally gifted. They'd be fortunate to have you. His smile vanished. What if Allison reappears, creates a commotion? Then Matt will see exactly why you've been out of touch, I pointed out. Genuine friends comprehend when someone faces a challenging predicament. 2 days later, Ryan returned from his lunch meeting with tangible work assignments and a conditional offer to rejoin the agency part-time while he recovered his stability. It felt profoundly normal, he marveled, as if the past 2 years of haze were dissipating. That evening, we arranged an impromptu dinner with 4 of Ryan's dearest friends. The house resonated with renewed conversation and mirth. As I watched my brother engaging fervently in discussions about design trends and industry chatter, I witnessed glimpses of his former self re-emerging. After his friends left, Ryan came to a decision. I'm going to request a separation from Allison, he said. I need time to figure out who I am without her sway. The next morning, we worked together to compose a compassionate yet firm email, as Catherine had advised against a face-to-face discussion due to Allison's unpredictability. Ryan articulated his need for space, proposed arrangements for her to retrieve her possessions, and recommended they both pursue individual therapy before making definitive marital decisions. Allison's response came within minutes. A soul line. You'll regret this. Catherine helped us secure a temporary restraining order following that foreboding message, citing her prior property damage and menacing conduct. The court issued a restricted order forbidding Allison from entering the property without prior arrangement. 3 days later, we discovered why. A neighbor informed us they'd observed someone fitting Allison's description attempting to enter via the back door. We hurried over to find a shattered window and multiple rooms in chaos. Most disturbing was the primary bedroom where Allison had spray-painted liar across the wall and gashed the mattress. The few remaining family photos had been defaced, with my face scratched out in every single one. We need to call the police, I said, pulling out my phone. Ryan appeared heartbroken. I never thought she'd go this far. The surveillance cameras I'd installed after the initial confrontation had recorded everything. Officer Ramirez returned with a new colleague to take our testimony and examine the footage. This is a definite breach of the restraining order, Officer Ramirez confirmed. We'll issue an APB for her vehicle. They located Allison at a nearby bar, still with spray paint remnants on her hands. She was apprehended for breaking and entering defacement and contempt of a court order. While Ryan grappled with guilt concerning her arrest, a fuller portrait of Allison materialized during the legal process. The widow narrative was completely fictitious. She had 2 prior marriages, both concluding with restraining orders against her. Her allegedly deceased husband was quite alive and residing in Arizona with his own restraining order. I should have seen the signs, Ryan chastised himself after learning these details. Manipulators are adept at their craft, I reminded him, and you were susceptible after losing our parents. As Allison faced legal repercussions, Ryan initiated divorce proceedings, supported by friends and a skilled therapist. The illusion she had built entirely collapsed when police uncovered many of our family heirlooms in a storage facility rented under her name. Items she had asserted were donated or sold, but had actually been stockpiled for herself. The retrieval of these treasures, Dad's books, Mom's jewelry chest, the photo albums, brought a degree of solace to both of us. Each reclaimed item felt like recapturing a fragment of our family's past. The path ahead would be extensive, with legal processes and emotional recuperation still to traverse. But for the first time in years, it felt like we were progressing favorably. 6 months passed, ushering in unforeseen changes for both Ryan and me. The family home, once an arena of conflict and falsehood, gradually reverted into a haven of solace and recovery. After the turmoil of Allison's apprehension and the ensuing legal actions, Ryan and I made a decision to temporarily live in the house together. What began as a sensible arrangement, Ryan needed a secure residence, and I desired to restore the home, developed into a significant phase of renewed connection. We redecorated each room together, selecting hues that respected our parents' preferences while infusing fresh vitality. The formal living room, which Mom had always kept in various shades of blue, we painted a tranquil seafoam shade that beautifully captured the morning light. Dad's study returned to the inviting cedar hue he had adored, though we updated it with crisp white molding. "Recall how Dad would chart our heights on this doorframe?" Ryan asked one afternoon as we sanded down woodwork in the kitchen. I ran my fingers over the subtle indentations still visible in the timber. "Every birthday, without fail. He was so thrilled when you finally surpassed his height." I was 16. Ryan laughed. He behaved as though I'd earned an Olympic medal. These joint memories, once agonizing to revisit, now offered a poignant comfort. We were reacquainting ourselves with our history. Not merely through anecdotes, but through the tangible space we were reclaiming. Ryan's therapy yielded positive outcomes. The nervous, diminished man who had tiptoed around Allison was gradually superseded by someone more akin to my capable, inventive brother. He obtained a part-time role at his former design firm, with the agreement to transition to full-time when he felt prepared. The creative director genuinely expressed gratitude for my return. He told me one evening over dinner. Said clients had been requesting my work specifically. "Of course they were," I replied. "Your talent hadn't vanished, Ryan. It was merely suppressed for a time." My own therapeutic journey had also been enlightening. I'd always seen myself as the resilient one, the competent sister who managed everything. But sessions with Dr. Patel helped me recognize how I'd sometimes fostered Ryan's dependence by intervening to resolve issues instead of empowering him to devise his own solutions. "There's a difference between helping and rescuing," Dr. Patel had explained. "Helping empowers. Rescuing can unwittingly disempower." This realization altered our dynamic, subtly yet profoundly. I found myself consulting Ryan on household decisions rather than merely notifying him. He in turn began assuming more initiative, whether negotiating with contractors for the bathroom remodel or exploring investment opportunities for his expanding savings. The legal repercussions of Allison's deeds proved less distressing than we'd anticipated. Her prior behavioral pattern undermined her in court, leading her to accept a plea agreement encompassing mandatory therapy, community service, and ongoing legal separation from both Ryan and me. "Do you ever contemplate if she's receiving assistance?" Ryan asked one Sunday, as we prepared our now customary family dinner. We had reclaimed this practice, sometimes inviting friends, but always preserving it as a foundation for our bond. "I hope so," I answered honestly, "not for our benefit, but for hers and for those who follow in her life." Ryan nodded, thoughtfully as he diced vegetables for the salad. "I've been reflecting much on forgiveness lately. And I'm not quite there yet," he confessed, "but I'm striving to prevent anger from consuming me." "That's progress, isn't it?" "Significant progress," I agreed. The retrieval of our family heirlooms proved one of the most therapeutic aspects of the past months. Each item Allison had concealed in storage felt like recovering a fragment of our parents' inheritance. Mom's hand-decorated serving dishes once again adorned our Sunday dinner table. Dad's leather-bound first editions returned to the study shelves. The Tiffany lamp cast light on the corner where Mom always read. Most cherished were the photo albums, which we dedicated several weekends to organizing and safeguarding. The images preserved moments we'd nearly forgotten. Summer vacations at Lake Michigan. Dad, trying to teach us both to fish. Mom's victorious smile upon receiving her master's degree in education. Our history palpable and invaluable. As spring arrived, Ryan started discussing finding his own residence. "Not because I desire to depart," he clarified, "but because I need to confirm my self-sufficiency." "I understand," I told him, and I did. "The house will always remain. It's your home whenever you require it." We sat on the back porch observing fireflies emerge in the dusk, a glass of Dad's preferred bourbon between us. "I've been thinking," Ryan said after a comfortable silence. "Perhaps it's time we discussed the house's long-term future." "What do you mean?" "It's legally yours, but it's our communal home. Maybe we should consider designating it officially shared property." The proposal moved me profoundly. "Are you sure?" "Precisely because of everything with Allison," he elucidated. "She attempted to seize what wasn't hers. This is distinct. This acknowledges an enduring truth, that our parents bequeathed their legacy to both of us, albeit in varying forms." We decided to consult Catherine about establishing a family trust for the property, guaranteeing it would remain a guiding presence for both of us, irrespective of life's trajectory. In July, exactly a year after the confrontation with Allison, Ryan signed the lease for a compact yet charming apartment near his design firm. It felt fitting that this move toward autonomy coincided with the anniversary of when he almost entirely lost himself. "It's within walking distance of work," he explained as he showed me around. "And there's a guest room for when I begin accepting private clients again." I noticed framed family photos already conspicuously arranged on his bookshelf, not concealed as they had been with Allison, but prominently displayed. Among them was a new addition, a recent photograph of Ryan and me on the family home's porch, laughing as we tried to replicate a childhood stance from 30 years earlier. "Looks like you're ready," I said, clasping his shoulder. "Thanks, to you," he replied. "No," I corrected gently. "You performed the arduous work. I simply offered a secure environment for it." As I drove home that evening, I contemplated the tumultuous journey of the past year. What had begun as a property conflict had transformed into something far more meaningful, a restoration not merely of physical space, but of our bond, our family legacy, and our individual resilience. The lessons were hard-won, yet invaluable. I'd learned that supporting someone doesn't equate to resolving all their issues. Ryan had learned that love shouldn't necessitate effacing yourself or your history. We'd both learned that honesty, even when discomforting, establishes more robust foundations than convenient untruths ever could. The house, when I pulled into the driveway, greeted me with customary warmth. It was quieter now, without Ryan's daily presence, but not vacant, never vacant. It remained filled with memories, with history, with the spirit of the family that molded us both. I poured a small measure of bourbon and lifted it toward the family portrait above the fireplace, Mom and Dad broadly smiling, Ryan and I alongside them, striking awkward teenage poses. "We're all right," I murmured to them. We persevered, and I knew with a conviction that surpassed logic, that they would have been proud of both their children. As I finished sharing this story with you, I wonder if you've ever had to assert your position when someone attempted to seize what was rightfully yours. Or perhaps you've observed a loved one become ensnared in an unhealthy relationship. I'd love to read your experiences in the comments section below. If this story connected with you, please tap the like button and subscribe for more true stories about familial boundaries and discovering resilience in challenging circumstances. Thank you for listening, and remember, sometimes the most challenging boundaries to establish are those that ultimately facilitate the greatest healing.